The scent of burnt espresso and stale cigarette smoke clung to my uniform like a second skin. I'd been on my feet for 11 hours straight, my lower back screaming with every step I took across the cracked linoleum floor of Sal's diner. The fluorescent lights above hummed their tired song, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made even the fresh pastries in the display case look days old. My reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser showed what I already knew. Dark circles under my eyes, hair escaping from its bun in defeated wisps, the kind of exhaustion that went bone deep. "Table 7 needs a refill," Marcy barked from behind the counter, not even looking up from her crossword puzzle. She'd been working here 20 years and had the permanent scowl to prove it. "On it," I mumbled, grabbing the coffee pot with hands that trembled slightly from fatigue. Or maybe it was hunger. I couldn't remember if I'd eaten today. Probably not. The tips had been terrible this week, and I was still $300 short on rent. Again. The diner was nearly empty at this hour, just past 9 on a Wednesday night. A trucker at the counter nursing his third cup of coffee. An elderly couple sharing a piece of pie. And then there was table 7. I'd noticed them the moment they walked in. Even though I'd been trying hard not to look, you couldn't help but notice. The woman entered first, and the entire diner seemed to hold its breath. She moved like she owned every inch of space she occupied, tall, sharp as a blade in a designer coat that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Her dark hair was pulled back so severely it looked painful. And her eyes, God, her eyes were cold. Predatory. The kind of eyes that evaluated your worth in half a second and found you wanting. Behind her came 2 men in dark suits, their jackets cut just loose enough to hide what I suspected were weapons. They flanked her like shadows, their gazes constantly scanning the room with a vigilance that made my skin prickle. I'd heard whispers, of course. Everyone in this part of the city had. Valentina Russo, the wife of Marco Russo, head of the Italian Mafia family that controlled everything from the docks to the downtown casinos. She was known for being just as ruthless as her husband, maybe more so. There were stories, the kind people only told in hushed voices, late at night, when they'd had too much to drink. A woman who'd looked at Valentina the wrong way at a charity gala had her business burned to the ground within a week. A man who'd tried to cheat the Russo family in a business deal had simply disappeared. And now she was sitting in Sal's diner, in my section, looking at the plastic-covered menu, like it might contaminate her perfectly manicured hands. I approached the table with the coffee pot, trying to make myself as small and invisible as possible. "Good evening. Can I get you something to drink while you decide?" Valentina didn't even glance up. "Espresso, if this place is capable of making one that doesn't taste like motor oil." Her voice was silk wrapped around steel. "Beautiful and dangerous. I'll do my best," I stammered, hating how weak I sounded. One of the bodyguards, the larger one with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, leaned forward. "Make sure you do." I nodded quickly and turned to leave, but Valentina's voice stopped me cold. "Wait." I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. Slowly I turned back around. She was looking at me now, really looking, and I felt like a butterfly pinned to a board. Her eyes traveled from my scuffed shoes to my coffee-stained apron to my face, and something flickered there. Amusement, maybe, or disdain. "What's your name?" Emma. Emma Chen." "Emma." She said it like she was tasting something unpleasant. "You look exhausted, Emma. Rough day?" It wasn't said with kindness. It was an observation, clinical and cold. "Just a long shift, ma'am. I'll get that espresso right away." I escaped to the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sal looked up from the grill, his bushy eyebrows raised. "That's Valentina Russo out there," he said in a low voice. "Be careful, kid. Very careful." "I know," I whispered, hands shaking as I started the espresso machine. "Why would someone like her come here?" Sal shrugged, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Probably owns this block and wanted to check on her investments. Just don't mess up that espresso." I didn't. I made it perfectly. The crema just right. The temperature exact. I even found a clean white saucer instead of the chipped ones we usually used. When I brought it out, Valentina took a sip, her expression unreadable. "Adequate," she said finally, and waved me away. I spent the next 20 minutes in a state of low-grade panic, refilling water glasses I'd already filled, wiping down tables that were already clean, anything to avoid going back to table 7. But eventually, inevitably, Valentina signaled for the check. I printed it out with trembling fingers and brought it over, setting it down gently on the table. Will that be all? For now. Valentina pulled out a black credit card, the kind with no limit, and placed it on top of the check. Though I have to say, Emma, you're quite jumpy. Are you afraid of me? The question was asked casually, almost playfully, but there was something sharp underneath it. A test, maybe. I'm just not used to serving someone as important as you, ma'am. Important. She smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. Is that what people call me? I didn't know how to answer that, so I just took the credit card and hurried back to the register. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to swipe it correctly. When I returned with the receipt and a pen, Valentina signed with a flourish and stood, her bodyguards immediately moving into position around her. She paused next to my station, and I felt her eyes on me again, that cold, evaluating stare. You know, Emma, you should be more confident. This world eats up timid little things like you. She reached out and, before I could react, tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear. The gesture was almost tender, but her touch was cold. It would be a shame if something happened to you. Then she was gone, sweeping out of the diner with her entourage, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and menace. I stood there, frozen, my ear tingling where she'd touched me. Holy hell! Marcy breathed from behind the counter. Did Valentina Russo just threaten you or hit on you? I honestly can't tell. Neither can I whispered. But when I looked down at the receipt, my blood ran cold. She'd left a $1,000 tip and written at the bottom, in elegant script, "Be more careful next time." I had no idea what that meant. I'd been nothing but careful. What had I done wrong? The diner door chimed again, and I looked up, expecting another late-night customer. Instead, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A black SUV was parked across the street, its windows tinted so dark they looked like voids, and standing next to it, bathed in the glow of the streetlight, was a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, well over 6 feet, and built like he could break someone in half without much effort. But it wasn't his size that made me stare. It was the way he held himself, the absolute stillness of someone who was completely in control. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly, expensive and understated, and even from this distance I could see the sharp lines of his face. The dark hair swept back from his forehead, and he was looking directly at me. Not at the diner, not at the street, at me. Our eyes met through the window, and something electric shot down my spine. His gaze was intense, almost predatory, but different from Valentina's cold assessment. This was heat. Dark, dangerous heat that made me feel like I was standing too close to a fire. Then he smiled, just a slight curve of his lips, and reached into his jacket. For one terrifying moment, I thought he was going to pull out a gun. But instead, he withdrew a phone, glanced at the screen, and then looked back at me. The smile widened just a fraction, and then he climbed into the SUV. As it pulled away, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Emma? Marcy's voice seemed to come from very far away. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I lied, but my hands were shaking worse than before as I cleared table 7. That's when I saw it. Valentina had left something behind. Tucked under the salt shaker was a small business card, cream-colored and elegant. I picked it up with fingers that felt numb. There was no name on it, no business, just a phone number embossed in gold, and below it, a single word in Italian, Chiamami. Call me. I shoved the card into my apron pocket like it might burn me and finished my shift in a daze. By the time I locked up the diner at 11, my mind was spinning with questions I didn't want to ask. Why had Valentina Russo come to a rundown diner in this part of town? Why had she left me $1,000 and a card? And who the hell was the man in the SUV? I should have thrown the card away. I should have forgotten the whole thing. But as I walked to the bus stop in the cold October night, my fingers kept finding it in my pocket, tracing the embossed letters like they held some secret I desperately needed to understand. The bus was late, as usual. I stood under the flickering streetlight, exhaustion settling into my bones like concrete. Tomorrow I'd have to be back at the diner at 6 a.m., the day after that too, and the day after that. An endless cycle of coffee pots and rude customers and tips that were never quite enough to make ends meet. This world eats up timid little things like you. Valentina's words echoed in my head, mixing with the rumble of an approaching engine, but it wasn't the bus. The black SUV pulled up to the curb in front of me, and my heart stopped. The back window rolled down with a quiet hum, and there he was, the man from before, even more intimidating up close. In the dim light, I could make out details I'd missed before. The sharp angle of his jaw, the slight crook in his nose that suggested it had been broken at least once, the way his dark eyes seemed to see right through me. Emma Chen. His voice was deep, rougher than I'd expected, with just a hint of an Italian accent. Get in the car. It wasn't a request. I don't know you. I know you don't know me. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Leather, maybe, and smoke. But you have something that belongs to my wife, and I'd very much like to discuss how you came to have it. His wife. Oh, God. This was Marco Russo. I should have run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn around and sprint down the street, to flag down the bus that was finally approaching, to do anything except get into that car with Marco Russo. But my legs wouldn't move. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring at him like a deer caught in headlights, while my mind raced through every terrible scenario. What did he mean? Something that belonged to his wife? The card? Was I not supposed to take it? Had Valentina left it as some kind of test, and I'd already failed? I'm not going to hurt you, Emma. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle, though the edge never quite left it. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. That's all. Here is fine, I managed to say, though my voice came out as barely more than a whisper. We can talk here. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or respect. You have more backbone than I thought, but no. Not here. Not in the open. He glanced up and down the empty street, and I noticed for the first time that there was another man in the driver's seat, his eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, constantly scanning. Get in the car, Emma. Please. The please surprised me. Men like Marco Russo didn't say please. They gave orders and expected them to be followed. But there was something in the way he said it. Not quite a request, but not quite a command either. An invitation wrapped in inevitability. My hand found the door handle before I'd consciously decided to move. The interior of the SUV was immaculate. Black leather seats that looked like they'd never been sat in, the faint smell of new car mixed with that cologne of his. I slid in, keeping as much distance between us as the seat would allow, and the door closed behind me with an expensive, final-sounding click. The driver pulled away from the curb smoothly, and I watched the bus stop disappear behind us, my last connection to normalcy vanishing into the night. Where are we going? I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. Nowhere yet. We're just driving. Marco settled back against his seat, but I noticed his body remained coiled, ready. Like even in this moment of apparent relaxation, he was prepared for violence. Tell me, Emma, how did you enjoy meeting my wife? I clutched my purse against my chest like a shield. She came to the diner. I just served her coffee, that's all. That's all? He turned to look at me fully, and I was struck again by the intensity of his gaze. Up close, I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could see the fine lines at their corners that suggested he was older than I'd initially thought, maybe late 30s, early 40s. Valentina doesn't just do anything, Miss Chen. Every action she takes is calculated. So I'll ask again, what happened tonight? I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. She ordered an espresso. She asked my name, told me I looked tired, and then she left. And gave you a very generous tip, I'm told, along with something else. So he knew about the card. Of course he knew. Men like Marco Russo knew everything that happened in their territory. I didn't ask for it, I said quickly. She just left it there. I wasn't even sure if I was supposed to take it. Show me. With trembling fingers, I pulled the card from my apron pocket and held it out. Marco took it, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. But it was enough to feel the calluses there, the roughness that spoke of violence in his past. He studied the card, his expression unreadable. "Chiamami," he read aloud, then laughed, a short, harsh sound without any real humor in it. My wife has a very particular sense of humor. He handed the card back to me. "Do you know what this means, Emma? Call me," I whispered, "but I don't understand why she would—" "Because she saw something in you tonight, something that amused her, or threatened her. With Valentina, it's often hard to tell the difference." He leaned forward slightly, and I pressed myself back against the seat. "Tell me something. Did she touch you?" The question was so specific, so pointed, that I knew he already knew the answer. "My hair," I admitted. She tucked a strand behind my ear. Marco's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course she did." He was quiet for a moment, staring out the tinted windows at the city passing by, the closed shops, the empty sidewalks, the occasional homeless person huddled in a doorway. "My wife has a habit of marking things she considers hers, and now, unfortunately, she's marked you." "I don't understand. I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress. That's exactly why." He turned back to me, and there was something in his eyes now that I couldn't quite identify. Not pity, but something close to it. Valentina collects people the way others collect art. She likes having power over them, likes knowing they're afraid of her. And you, Emma Chen, were afraid. She could smell it on you. "Everyone's afraid of her," I said, and was surprised by the bitterness in my own voice. "That's what people say, that she's—" I trailed off, realizing I was probably saying too much to the wrong person. Ruthless? Cruel? A monster? Marco's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Go ahead. Say it. I've heard worse." I was going to say powerful. "Ah." He studied me with renewed interest. "Diplomatic. But you're not wrong. Valentina is powerful. She's also jealous, possessive, and when she feels threatened, extremely dangerous. Which is why we're having this conversation." The SUV turned down a street I didn't recognize, heading away from my neighborhood and toward the waterfront. My pulse quickened. I still don't understand what I did to threaten her. I served her coffee. That's it. "You existed," Marco said simply. "You were young, pretty in an understated way, and completely unaware of your own appeal. That's catnip to Valentina. She'll want to break you, just to prove she can. Unless..." "Unless what?" He was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "Unless I break you first." The words hung in the air between us, and I felt my blood turn to ice. "Please," I whispered. "I don't want any trouble. I'll throw away the card. I'll forget this ever happened. I'll quit my job and move if I have to." "Shh." The sound was surprisingly gentle. I didn't mean it like that. Wrong choice of words. He ran a hand through his dark hair, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his composure. "I'm trying to help you, Emma, though I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it. Let me start over." The driver's phone rang, and he answered in rapid Italian. Marco listened, his expression darkening, then barked out a response that made the driver flinch. When he turned back to me, some of the intensity had returned to his face. "Change of plans. We need to make a stop." "What kind of stop?" "The kind where you stay in the car and don't ask questions." The SUV pulled up in front of what looked like an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. The area was dark, the only light coming from a few scattered street lamps that cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. 3 other cars were already there, their occupants standing in a loose circle, smoking and talking in low voices. Marco reached into his jacket, that same gesture I'd seen earlier, and this time he did pull out a gun. It was sleek and black and terrifying, and he checked it with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before. "Stay here," he said to me, his voice hard now. "All business. Don't leave this car for any reason. Lock the doors after I get out. If anything happens, and I mean anything, you tell Tony to drive. He'll get you somewhere safe." "What's going to happen?" I asked, my voice small. "Hopefully nothing. But in my business, It's best to be prepared. He opened the door, then paused. And Emma, if Valentina calls you, and she will, don't answer. Not until I tell you it's safe. Then he was gone, striding toward the group of men with a confidence that made them all straighten up. I heard the click of the locks engaging, and Tony, the driver, caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Don't worry, Signorina, he said in heavily accented English. The boss, he knows what he's doing. I watched through the tinted window as Marco approached the group. There was a brief exchange of words, and then one of the men, shorter, stockier, with a face that looked like it had been on the wrong end of too many fists, stepped forward, gesturing angrily. Marco remained perfectly still, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand stayed close to where he'd tucked the gun. The argument escalated. The stocky man got closer, jabbing his finger toward Marco's chest. And then, so fast I almost missed it, Marco moved. One moment they were arguing, the next, the stocky man was on the ground, Marco's knee on his back, and the gun pressed against the base of his skull. The other men scattered, some reaching for their own weapons, but Tony was already opening his door, his own gun out, and pointed at them. Madonna, Tony breathed. This is not good. What's happening? I asked, my voice shaking. That man on the ground, Sal Benedetti. He works for the Corsini family. If Mr. Russo kills him, there will be war. I watched in horror as Marco said something to the man beneath him, too quiet for me to hear, but clearly menacing based on how Benedetti went rigid. Then Marco stood up, holstered his gun, and walked back to the SUV as calmly as if he'd just been discussing the weather. He slid back into the seat next to me, not a hair out of place, though I could see his chest rising and falling a bit faster than before. Apologies for that interruption, he said, as Tony pulled away from the warehouse. Business matters. You almost killed that man. Almost. But I didn't. That was the point. He looked at me, and something in his expression softened. You're shaking. I was. My whole body was trembling, adrenaline coursing through my veins even though I'd been safe in the car the entire time. I've never seen anything like that before. And if I have my way, you never will again. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and when I didn't, he took my hand in his. His palm was warm, solid, grounding. Listen to me carefully, Emma. I need you to understand something. The world I live in, the world Valentina lives in, it's not like yours. It's violent and cruel and there are no second chances for weakness, but you don't belong in it. He trailed off, studying our joined hands like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. I'm what? Innocent, he said finally. And that's so rare in my life that I barely recognize it anymore. He squeezed my hand gently, then let go, leaving me feeling strangely bereft. I'm going to take you home now, and tomorrow, you're going to quit your job at Sal's Diner. I can't quit. I need the money. You'll have a new job. Better pay, safer location. I own a gallery in the arts district. They need someone to manage the front desk. It's easy work, and you'll make 3 times what you're making now. I don't understand. My head was spinning. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Because my wife has decided to play with you, Marco said, his voice going hard again. And when Valentina plays with something, she usually breaks it. I'm trying to keep you out of her reach. By putting me in a job you control? That's still within your reach. Within her reach. He smiled then. A real smile. Not the cold curve of lips I'd seen before. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost boyish. You're smarter than you pretend to be, aren't you? Yes, you'll be in my reach. But I'm offering protection, Emma. Valentina hurts people. I just try to keep the damage to a minimum. The SUV pulled up in front of my apartment building, a rundown 4-story walk-up with peeling paint and a front door that didn't lock properly. Next to the gleaming SUV, it looked even more pathetic than usual. This is where you live? Marco asked, his voice carefully neutral. It's what I can afford. He was quiet for a moment, staring up at the building. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. You have a roommate named Jessica who works nights at the hospital. You're behind on rent by $300, and your landlord has threatened to evict you twice this year. You eat 1 meal a day because you send most of your money back to your mother in California. who has early onset Alzheimer's and lives in a care facility that costs more than you make in a month. The blood drained from my face. How do you... I know everything about you, Emma Chen. I've known since the moment my wife walked into that diner and took an interest in you. That's what I do. I gather information. I assess threats. I protect what's mine. He turned to look at me, and there was something fierce in his eyes. And I've decided you're mine now, which means Valentina can't have you. I'm not a possession, I said, anger finally cutting through my fear. You can't just decide I belong to you because your wife looked at me. You're right, I can't, but I can offer you a choice. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and showed me the screen. It was a bank transfer confirmation. $50,000 to my account, that's yours. No strings, no obligations. Enough to catch up on your rent, pay your mother's care facility for the next 6 months, and have something left over for yourself. Take it and disappear. Move to another city. Change your name if you want. I'll make sure Valentina doesn't follow. I stared at the screen, my mind unable to process what I was seeing. Why would you do this? You don't owe me anything. Because when I look at you, I see something I thought was extinct in this world. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. Goodness. Real, genuine goodness. And I've spent so long in the dark that I've forgotten what light looks like. He put the phone away. Or you can take the job at the gallery. Stay in the city. Let me keep you safe from my wife and from anyone else who might want to hurt you. But Emma, you need to understand. If you stay, there's no going back. Valentina will see it as a challenge. She'll come after you harder, and I'll have to get more involved in your life than either of us probably wants. The choice hung between us like a blade, safety and freedom, or protection that came with its own cage. I need time to think, I whispered. You have until tomorrow morning. The gallery opens at 9. If you're there, I'll know you've made your choice. If you're not... He opened the car door for me, ever the gentleman despite everything. Then I'll wire you the money and you'll never see me or Valentina again. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, my legs unsteady. Mr. Russo. Marco, he corrected. If we're going to do this, you should call me Marco. Marco, I repeated, and the name felt strange on my tongue. Thank you. For the warning. For the choice. For not being what I expected. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or pleasure. Don't thank me yet, Emma. You might regret this conversation by morning. The SUV pulled away, leaving me standing alone in front of my building, my mind reeling and my apron pocket heavy with a card that had somehow changed everything. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs in a daze, unlocked my apartment door, and found Jessica asleep on the couch, still in her scrubs from the hospital. She'd left a note on the fridge, leftover pizza in the box if you're hungry. Don't forget rent is due in 3 days. 3 days. $50,000, a gallery job, a mafia boss who'd somehow appointed himself my protector, and his wife, who'd marked me as her newest toy. I pulled out my phone and checked my bank account, not really believing it would be there. But it was. $50,000, deposited 2 hours ago. Real, tangible, life-changing. I should have been relieved, grateful. Instead, I felt terrified, because I knew with absolute certainty that I was going to take the job at the gallery. Not for the money, not even for the protection, but because when Marco Russo had held my hand in that SUV, something inside me had recognized something inside him. 2 people who didn't belong in each other's worlds. Drawn together by circumstances neither of us could control. And maybe, just maybe, I was tired of being invisible, tired of being the timid little thing that the world ate up. Maybe I wanted to see what it felt like to be seen, even if it meant playing with fire. Even if it meant going to war with the most dangerous woman in the city. I set my alarm for 7 a.m. and tried to sleep, but all I could see were Marco's eyes in the darkness. All I could feel was the ghost of his touch on my hand. Tomorrow, everything would change. I just hoped I'd survive it. The gallery was nothing like I expected. I'd imagined something cold and pretentious, all white walls and abstract paintings that nobody really understood, but everyone pretended to love. Instead, Russo Fine Arts was warm, exposed brick walls, hardwood floors that creaked slightly under my feet, and art that actually meant something. Photographs of the city at different times of day, oil paintings of ordinary people doing ordinary things, sculptures made from reclaimed materials that somehow captured both beauty and decay. It felt real, honest, nothing like the man who owned it. I stood outside for 10 minutes before I finally worked up the courage to go in. The morning was cold, autumn asserting itself with a bitter wind that cut through my jacket. I'd dressed carefully, the nicest clothes I owned, which still looked shabby compared to the elegance of the neighborhood, and pulled my hair back into a neat bun. Professional, unremarkable, safe. The bell above the door chimed softly as I entered, and a woman looked up from behind a mahogany desk. She was in her 50s, with silver hair cut into a sharp bob and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her expression was warm but assessing. "You must be Emma," she said, standing and extending her hand. "I'm Diana Marchesi. Mr. Russo told me to expect you." Her handshake was firm, confident. Everything I wasn't. "He did?" "This morning. Called me at 6 a.m., in fact." She smiled, though there was something knowing in her eyes. He does that sometimes. Early riser, our Mr. Russo. Never sleeps much. She gestured to a smaller desk in the corner, positioned to have a view of both the entrance and the main gallery space. "That'll be yours. The work isn't complicated. Answer phones, greet clients, schedule appointments for viewings. We're not busy most days, so you'll have plenty of time to familiarize yourself with the collection." "I don't know anything about art," I admitted. "You don't need to. You just need to be polite and observant. Mr. Russo values observant people." Diana returned to her own desk and pulled out a folder. "Now let's get the paperwork sorted. Tax forms, direct deposit information, employee handbook, standard things." I spent the next hour filling out forms in a daze, still not quite believing this was real. The salary Diana mentioned was exactly what Marco had promised. 3 times what I made at the diner, with benefits. Paid time off. Things I'd thought were myths, reserved for people with college degrees and career paths. "One more thing," Diana said as I signed the last form. "Mr. Russo asked me to give you this." She handed me a small velvet box. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a phone, sleek, expensive, brand new, and a note in bold, masculine handwriting. "Your old phone isn't secure. Use this one. My number is already programmed. Call if you need anything. M." "He's very thorough," Diana said, watching my reaction carefully. "About security, I mean. All his employees get company phones. Makes it easier to reach us if there's an emergency." But I noticed she didn't have one on her desk. Just her regular phone, scratched and outdated. This wasn't about company policy. This was about control, about keeping tabs on me. I should have been angry, should have thrown the phone back and walked out. But instead, I found myself slipping it into my purse, right next to my old phone and Valentina's card. The morning passed quietly. A few clients came in, wealthy-looking people who spoke in hushed tones about composition and technique. Diana handled them with easy grace, while I observed and learned. By lunchtime, I was starting to relax, starting to think maybe this would be okay. Then the door opened, and Valentina Russo walked in. She was even more striking in daylight, tall and razor-sharp in a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her hair was down today, falling in dark waves past her shoulders, and her lips were painted blood red. She moved through the gallery like a shark through water, predatory and beautiful and impossible to look away from. Diana stood immediately, her expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Russo, what a pleasant surprise. Diana." Valentina's voice was silk and poison. "I heard my husband hired someone new. I wanted to meet her." Her eyes found me, and I felt pinned again, just like at the diner. She crossed the gallery slowly, deliberately, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown. "Emma Chen," she said, my name rolling off her tongue like she was tasting it. "You took the job." "Yes, ma'am." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Interesting." She circled my desk slowly, taking in every detail, my clothes, my posture, the way my hands gripped the edge of the desk. "And tell me, Emma, did my husband make this offer personally?" Or did he send one of his lackeys? The question was a trap. I could feel it, even if I didn't understand the mechanics of it. He offered me the position yesterday evening, I said carefully. I accepted this morning, yesterday evening. Valentina smiled, but it was all teeth. How romantic. A late-night meeting, a job offer, a rescue from your miserable little life. Marco does love playing the hero. She leaned against my desk, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and suffocating. But let me tell you something about my husband, Emma. He doesn't do anything without a reason, and his reasons are never as noble as they seem. Mrs. Russo, Diana interjected carefully. Perhaps we could discuss this in the back office. No. Valentina didn't even look at her. I think Emma and I should get to know each other better. After all, if she's going to be working in my husband's gallery, spending time in his space, she should understand how things work. She reached out and tucked that same strand of hair behind my ear, just like she had at the diner. Tell me, sweet Emma, has Marco touched you yet? My face burned. No. Of course not. Of course not, Valentina repeated mockingly, because he's such a gentleman, so respectful, so careful. Her hand moved from my hair to my chin, tilting my face up to meet her gaze. Her grip was gentle but firm, impossible to break without making a scene, but he will. They always do. And when he does, I want you to remember something. Everything he has, everything he is, belongs to me, including his little projects. I'm not a project, I said, and was surprised by the edge in my own voice. Valentina's eyes widened slightly, and then she laughed, a genuine sound of delight. Oh, she has some fire after all. How wonderful. She released my chin, but didn't step back. I'm going to enjoy watching you, Emma Chen. Watching you try to navigate this world you don't understand. Watching you realize that you're in over your head. And watching you break. That's enough. Marco's voice cut through the tension like a blade. I hadn't heard him enter, but there he was, standing in the doorway with two of his men behind him. He was dressed in a dark suit, perfectly tailored, and there was something different about him in the daylight. More solid, more real, somehow more dangerous. Valentina turned slowly, her expression shifting into something almost pleasant. Marco, I was just welcoming your new employee. You were intimidating her. He crossed the gallery in long strides, positioning himself between us. Diana, take your lunch break. Emma, go with her. But I just started, I began. Now? Marco said, his tone brooking no argument. Diana grabbed her purse and practically dragged me out of the gallery. We ended up at a small cafe 2 blocks away, and she ordered us both coffee with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. How long have you worked for him? I asked when we were seated. 15 years. Diana stirred sugar into her coffee. Since before he married Valentina. What's she like? Really? Diana was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. She's brilliant, ruthless, and deeply, deeply insecure, though she'd kill anyone who suggested it. She came from nothing, grew up in the slums of Naples, clawed her way up through various criminal organizations until she caught Marco's attention. He married her 5 years ago, thinking she'd be an asset to his business. And she has been. But she's also... Diana trailed off. Dangerous, I finished. More than you know. Diana met my eyes. Emma, I don't know what happened between you and Mr. Russo, and I'm not going to ask, but you need to understand something. Valentina sees you as a threat now, not because of anything you've done, but because Marco went out of his way to protect you. That means something to him, which means it threatens her position. I don't want to threaten anyone. I just need a job. I know, but in this world, intentions don't matter. Only actions. She sipped her coffee. Be careful. Be smart. And whatever you do, don't let yourself care about him. Marco Russo is a good man in a terrible business, and he's married to a woman who would burn down the world rather than share him with anyone. We returned to the gallery an hour later to find it empty. No Marco, no Valentina, no bodyguards, just a note on my desk in that same bold handwriting. I'm sorry. She won't bother you again. But he was wrong. That evening as I was closing up the gallery, My new phone buzzed. An unknown number, but I knew who it was before I even answered. "Hello, Emma." Valentina's voice was warm, almost friendly. "I hope I didn't scare you too badly today." "What do you want?" "To talk. Just talk. You and me, woman to woman. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I'll send a car." She paused. "You can refuse, of course, but Marco won't always be there to protect you. And I think you're smart enough to know that making an enemy of me would be unwise." "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're interesting, Emma, and I haven't been interested in anything for a very long time." She laughed softly. "Besides, my husband has claimed you, which means you're already part of our game, whether you like it or not. The only question is whether you're a player or a pawn." The line went dead. I stood there in the empty gallery, surrounded by beautiful art and elegant architecture, and felt the walls closing in. Marco had promised protection, but what he'd really done was paint a target on my back. Valentina had marked me, and now she was circling, waiting for the right moment to strike. I should call Marco, should tell him about Valentina's invitation, should let him handle it. But Diana's words echoed in my mind. Don't let yourself care about him. If I called Marco, I'd be admitting I needed him, admitting I couldn't handle this myself, admitting I was exactly the weak, timid thing everyone thought I was. So instead, I locked up the gallery, took the bus home, and spent the night staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Tomorrow night, I'd meet Valentina Russo on her terms, without Marco, without protection, just me and the most dangerous woman in the city. And maybe, just maybe, I'd figure out what game they were really playing, and how to survive it. The car Valentina sent wasn't what I expected. No threatening black SUV with tinted windows. Instead, a sleek silver sedan pulled up in front of my apartment at precisely 8 o'clock, driven by a woman in her 30s with short blonde hair and a professional smile. "Miss Chen, I'm Sophia. Mrs. Russo asked me to bring you to dinner." Dinner. She'd said talk, but of course it would be dinner. Everything with these people was wrapped in layers of civility that barely disguised the violence underneath. I'd dressed carefully. A simple black dress I'd bought years ago for a job interview I never got. My hair down for once. Minimal makeup. I wanted to look composed, not like I'd spent the entire day terrified and second-guessing this decision. I hadn't told Marco, hadn't even touched the new phone he'd given me. This was between Valentina and me, and I needed to handle it myself. The drive took us to the waterfront, to a restaurant I'd only seen in magazines, the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance, and the cheapest bottle of wine cost more than my weekly paycheck. Sophia led me through the main dining room, where wealthy patrons barely glanced up from their plates, and into a private room at the back. Valentina sat alone at a table set for two, a glass of red wine in her hand. She'd changed since the gallery, now wearing a black dress that hugged every curve, her hair pulled back into an elegant twist. She looked like something out of a fashion magazine, untouchable and perfect. "Emma." She smiled and gestured to the chair across from her. "I'm so glad you came. I was worried Marco might try to stop you." "He doesn't know I'm here," I said, taking my seat. Her smile widened. "Even better. Please, have some wine. It's a 1995 Barolo, one of my favorites." A waiter appeared from nowhere and poured me a glass. The wine was deep red, almost black, and when I sipped it, the taste was complex. Dark cherries and leather, and something earthy I couldn't identify. It probably cost more than my rent. "Do you like it?" Valentina asked, watching me over the rim of her own glass. "It's very good. But you don't really taste it, do you? You're too nervous." She set down her glass and leaned forward. "Relax, Emma. I'm not going to hurt you. Not tonight, anyway. Tonight, I just want to understand you." "Understand me?" "Yes. You see, when Marco brought you into our lives, I was curious. What could possibly be so special about a waitress from a rundown diner that my husband would go to such lengths to protect her?" She tilted her head, studying me. "At first, I thought maybe you were lovers, that he'd been visiting you in secret, that this was just another affair. But no, Marco hasn't touched you, I can tell. He wants to, but he hasn't. My face burned. There's nothing between us. Not yet. But there will be. She said it with such certainty, such casual cruelty. My husband has a weakness for broken things. He likes to fix them, protect them, make them his. And you, Emma, are very broken, aren't you? The words hit harder than they should have. I'm not broken. Your mother is dying slowly in a care facility you can barely afford. Your father left when you were 12. You work yourself to exhaustion for tips that never quite cover your bills. You have no friends, no life, no future. Valentina's voice was almost gentle. That sounds pretty broken to me. How do you know all that? Please. The moment Marco took an interest in you, I had you investigated. I know everything, Emma. Your bank account balance, your credit score, the fact that you cry yourself to sleep some nights thinking about your mother, the fact that you're so desperately lonely you can barely stand it. She paused. I even know about the baby. My blood ran cold. What baby? Oh, come now. Don't play stupid. You were pregnant 3 years ago. 20 weeks along when you lost it. The father, some musician you met at a bar, disappeared the moment you told him. You were working 2 jobs trying to save up for the baby, and then one day you woke up bleeding and it was just gone. Valentina's eyes glittered. You never told anyone. Not your mother, not your roommate. You just went back to work the next day like nothing happened. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. That was my deepest pain, my most private tragedy, and she'd just thrown it in my face like it was nothing. Why? I whispered. Why would you bring that up? Because I want you to understand something. Valentina leaned back in her chair, perfectly composed. I know pain, Emma. Real pain. I grew up in a brothel in Naples. My mother was a prostitute, and when I was old enough, barely 13, she tried to sell me to the same men who used her. So I killed her, slit her throat while she slept and ran. She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather. I stared at her, horror and fascination warring inside me. I spent years on the streets, doing things I'm not proud of to survive. I stole, I lied, I seduced powerful men and robbed them blind. I clawed my way up through organizations that would have killed me without a second thought, all to get to where I am now. She took another sip of wine. So when I look at you, soft, sheltered, naive little Emma, I see everything I had to destroy in myself to survive, and I hate you for it. Then why am I here? I asked. If you hate me, why not just do whatever you're going to do, because I wanted to give you a chance. She pulled something from her purse, a thick envelope, and slid it across the table. Inside is $200,000 in cash, enough to set up your mother in the best care facility in California, enough to start over somewhere new, enough to disappear completely. Take it and leave. Tonight. Don't go back to your apartment. Don't say goodbye to anyone. Just vanish. I stared at the envelope, my mind reeling. And if I don't? Then you stay in the game. And I promise you, Emma, you won't survive it. Valentina's voice was cold now, all pretense of warmth gone. Marco thinks he can protect you, but he can't. Not from me. Not from the life we live. You'll be used, broken, and discarded. Or worse, you'll become like me. And trust me, you don't want that. My hands shook as I reached for the envelope. $200,000, my mother's care, a new life, freedom. All I had to do was run. But then I thought about Marco's eyes in the SUV, the way he'd held my hand, the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious, something worth protecting, and I thought about his words. When I look at you, I see something I thought was extinct in this world. Goodness. No, I said, pushing the envelope back across the table. Valentina's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. No? I'm not running. I didn't ask to be part of whatever this is between you and Marco, but I'm not going to let you chase me away because you're afraid. Afraid? The word came out sharp, dangerous. Of what exactly would I be afraid? Of losing him. The words came out before I could stop them. But once I started, I couldn't stop. You said Marco has a weakness for broken things he wants to fix. But maybe his real weakness is that he's trapped in a marriage with someone who sees everything as a transaction. Maybe he's tired of living in a world where love is just another form of currency. The silence that followed was deafening. Valentina stared at me, her face absolutely still, and I realized I might have just signed my own death warrant. Then slowly, she started to laugh, not the cruel, mocking laugh from before, but something genuine, almost admiring. "Oh, Emma, you really have no idea what you've just done, do you?" She stood, smoothing down her dress. "I offered you a way out. I tried to be merciful, but you've chosen to stay and fight, which means the gloves come off." She leaned down, her face inches from mine. "Marco might think you're special, but you're not. You're just another naive girl who thinks she can change a man like him. And I'm going to enjoy watching him break your heart." She straightened and walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Emma, that money your dear husband deposited in your account. It came from a drug shipment that killed 17 people when it was stolen from a rival family. Every dollar you've spent is soaked in blood. Sleep well." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the private room with a half-empty glass of wine and the envelope of money still sitting on the table. I sat there for a long time, my mind spinning. Everything she'd said about my past, about the baby, about the money, it was all designed to break me, to make me feel dirty and compromised. And it had almost worked, but something else was happening too. Something I hadn't expected. I was angry, not scared, not intimidated. Angry. Angry at Valentina for using my pain as a weapon. Angry at Marco for dragging me into his world without fully explaining what it meant. Angry at myself for being so desperate for connection that I'd walked into this trap in the first place. I grabbed the envelope, stood, and walked out of the restaurant. Sophia was waiting by the car, but I waved her off. I'll find my own way home. I walked for hours through the city streets, the envelope heavy in my bag. When I finally reached my apartment, it was past midnight. Jessica was home for once, heating up leftover takeout in the kitchen. "Where have you been?" she asked, then took one look at my face. "What happened?" I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I think I just made a very powerful enemy. Scale of 1 to 10, how much trouble are we in? 11. Jessica sat down next to me, her nurse's instincts kicking in. "Okay, tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Valentina, about Marco, about the gallery and the money and the choice I'd just made. I left out some details, the violence, the specifics of Marco's business, but I told her enough. When I finished, Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You really like him, don't you? This Marco guy. I don't even know him. But you feel something. Otherwise you would have taken the money and run." She studied my face. "Emma, I've known you for 3 years. You're the most careful person I've ever met. You don't take risks. You don't make waves. So the fact that you're doing this now, it means something. It means I'm an idiot. Maybe. Or maybe you're finally fighting for something instead of just surviving." Jessica squeezed my hand. "Just promise me you'll be careful. These people sound dangerous. They are." Then why stay? It was the question I'd been asking myself all night. And finally I had an answer, because I'm tired of being invisible. Tired of letting the world happen to me instead of making my own choices. And because... I took a deep breath. Because when Marco looks at me, I feel like I matter. Like I'm more than just someone barely holding on. And I think maybe I need to find out if that's real or just another kind of trap. Jessica hugged me then, fierce and protective. "Okay, but if this goes south, we're running. I don't care about the lease or my job or anything else. Deal? Deal." That night, I finally looked at the new phone Marco had given me. There was one message, sent hours ago. Valentina told me about dinner. "I'm sorry. I should have warned you she'd try something like this. Are you okay? M." I stared at the message for a long time before typing a response. "I'm fine. And I'm not running. See you at work tomorrow." His reply came instantly. "Emma, please be careful. You don't know what you're getting into." But he was wrong. I was starting to understand exactly what I was getting into. A war. Between a husband and wife who'd forgotten how to be anything but enemies. And I was the prize they were fighting over. Not because I was special, but because I represented something they'd both lost. Hope. And in a world as dark as theirs, hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of my life. On the surface, everything seemed normal. I worked at the gallery, greeting clients and learning about art under Diana's patient guidance. I paid my mother's care facility bills without the gnawing anxiety that usually accompanied it. I even started eating regular meals, gaining back some of the weight I'd lost from years of skipping dinner. But underneath, a war was being waged, and I was right in the center of it. Valentina made her presence known in 1,000 small ways. She'd send flowers to the gallery, beautiful arrangements of black roses with cards that said things like, "Thinking of you," and "Can't wait to see you again." She'd call the gallery phone at random times, asking Diana pointed questions about my schedule, my lunch breaks, whether I'd mentioned Marco. She even showed up twice more, always immaculate and smiling, treating me with a warmth that felt more threatening than her earlier hostility. "She's playing with you," Diana warned after the second visit, like a cat with a mouse. But Marco was playing too. He'd arrive at the gallery unexpectedly, always with some excuse, checking inventory, meeting with artists, reviewing the books. But his eyes would find me every time, holding my gaze for just a moment too long, checking that I was okay, that I was still there. He never touched me, never said anything inappropriate, but the tension between us grew with each passing day, thick and electric, and impossible to ignore. On a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after my dinner with Valentina, Marco arrived at closing time. Diana had already left, and I was alone in the gallery, updating the client database on the computer. "Emma." His voice made me jump. "I need to talk to you." He looked tired, more tired than I'd ever seen him. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually immaculate suit was slightly rumpled, like he'd been wearing it for days. "Is everything okay?" "No." He crossed to my desk, then seemed to think better of it and moved to the window instead, staring out at the street. "Valentina is escalating. She's been making moves, business moves, that are designed to draw me away from the city. Meetings I can't miss, deals I have to personally oversee. She's trying to leave you unprotected." My stomach dropped. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll be gone for at least a week, maybe 2. And I need to know you'll be safe." He turned to face me, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. "I want you to move into one of my properties. It's secure, fully staffed, and no." "Emma, please, this isn't a request. Valentina is dangerous, and without me here..." I said no. I stood, meeting his gaze. "I'm not going to hide in some gilded cage while you two play your games. I have a life, Marco, a roommate, responsibilities. I can't just disappear. Your life won't matter if you're dead." His voice was harsh, but I could hear the fear underneath it. "You don't understand what she's capable of, what she's done to people who got in her way. Then tell me." I moved closer to him, and he tensed. "Stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Tell me the truth. All of it." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he laughed. A bitter, exhausted sound. "You want the truth? Fine. Valentina has killed at least 12 people that I know of, probably more. She's poisoned rivals, orchestrated accidents, and once buried a woman alive because she thought I was having an affair with her. I wasn't, but it didn't matter. Valentina saw a threat, and she eliminated it. The words should have terrified me, should have sent me running. But instead, I felt something else, clarity. And yet you married her. I married her because she was useful. Because in my business, a wife like Valentina is an asset, someone feared and respected, someone who could handle the brutal side of things I didn't want to touch. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't love her. She didn't love me. It was a transaction, like everything else in our world. But then you... He trailed off, his jaw tightening. Then I what? You reminded me what it felt like to want something good, something pure. He took a step toward me, and I could smell his cologne, could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. When I look at you, Emma, I see everything I've lost, everything I gave up to build this empire. And I hate myself for dragging you into this mess. But I can't seem to let you go. My heart was racing, my skin flushed, Marco, I know. I'm married. This can never be anything more than what it is right now, me protecting you from my own mistakes. But I need you to understand something. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. If something happened to you because of me, because of this world I forced you into, I couldn't live with it. So please, Emma, please just let me keep you safe. I should have stepped back, should have maintained the professional distance we'd carefully preserved, but instead, I reached up and caught his hand, pressing it against my cheek. I'm not afraid of Valentina, I said softly. I'm afraid of this, of what I feel when you look at me, of wanting something I can't have. Marco's eyes darkened, and for one electric moment I thought he was going to kiss me. His thumb traced along my cheekbone, and I felt the tremor in his hand, the restraint it was taking for him not to close the distance between us. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered it, his expression hardening as he listened. When he hung up, he looked older, more worn. I have to go. There's been an incident at one of the warehouses. He squeezed my hand once, then let go. Think about what I said, about moving somewhere safe. I will. It was a lie, and we both knew it. After he left, I sat alone in the gallery for a long time, my cheek still warm where he'd touched it. I was in love with him. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I was in love with a married man, a criminal, someone whose world was built on violence and blood money, and worse, I think he was falling for me too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment until Jessica threatened to sedate me, then finally grabbed my coat and went for a walk. The city was quiet at 2 a.m., just the occasional car passing and the distant wail of sirens. I found myself at the waterfront, staring out at the dark water and thinking about choices, about the life I'd been living before Marco. Small, safe, invisible. And the life I was living now, terrifying and complicated, and more alive than I'd felt in years. Beautiful night, isn't it? I spun around to find Valentina standing behind me, alone for once, wearing jeans and a leather jacket like a normal person, but her eyes were the same, cold and calculating and dangerous. Are you following me? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. No need. I knew you'd come here eventually. People in crisis always seek out water. Something about the vastness of it makes their problems seem smaller. She moved to stand beside me, both of us facing the water. Marco left today. I know. And yet you didn't go with him, didn't take his offer of protection. Why? I thought about lying, about giving her some safe, diplomatic answer. But I was tired of being diplomatic. Tired of being afraid. Because I won't let you win by default. If you want me gone, you'll have to make me leave. And I don't think you will. Valentina turned to look at me, surprise flickering across her face. Oh? And why is that? Because you're not actually afraid I'll steal Marco. You're afraid of what I represent, proof that he's capable of caring about someone. That maybe he wasn't always the cold, calculating man you married. And if he can care about me, it means he could have cared about you. Which means you drove away the one thing you actually wanted. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. My head snapped to the side, my cheek exploding with pain, and I tasted blood where my teeth had cut into my lip. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Me holding my burning cheek, Valentina breathing hard, her hand still raised. Then slowly, she lowered her hand. You're right, she said quietly. I did drive him away. Every day I drove him further with my jealousy, my cruelty, my need to control everything. And now he looks at you the way he used to look at me, back when we first met, before I showed him what I really was. There were tears in her eyes, actual tears. I'd never thought I'd see Valentina Russo cry. I don't want to take him from you, I said, my voice shaking. I never wanted any of this. I know. That's what makes it worse. You're not trying to seduce him or manipulate him. You're just yourself. Good and kind and everything I had to kill in myself to survive. She wiped her eyes roughly. Do you know what he told me the night before he married me? He said he admired my strength. That I was the kind of woman who could stand beside him in this world. But he never said he loved me, not once in 5 years. Valentina? No. Let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I came here tonight to kill you. I have a gun in my jacket pocket. I was going to shoot you and dump your body in the water, and Marco would never prove it was me. But standing here, talking to you, I realized something. Killing you won't bring him back to me. It won't make him look at me the way he looks at you. It'll just prove that I'm exactly the monster he thinks I am. She pulled out the gun, sleek and black, just like Marco's. And for one terrifying moment, I thought she'd changed her mind. But instead, she turned and threw it into the water. It disappeared with a small splash, swallowed by the darkness. Go home, Emma, Valentina said tiredly. You've won. I don't know how, but you've won. This wasn't a game I wanted to play. I know. But you played it anyway, and you played it better than me. You stayed soft when I would have hardened. You stayed kind when I would have struck first. And somehow, that was the right move. She started to walk away, then paused. Take care of him. Marco, I mean. He pretends to be strong, but he's more fragile than people think. And Emma, the money he gave you, I lied. It didn't come from any drug shipment. It came from his personal account, money he earned legitimately from the gallery and his other legal businesses. I just wanted to make you feel dirty. Then she was gone, disappearing into the night like a ghost. I stood there for a long time, processing what had just happened. Valentina had come to kill me and walked away instead. She'd admitted defeat. She'd cried. She'd shown me she was human. When I finally made it home, the sun was starting to rise. Jessica was awake, making coffee, and took one look at my face before pulling me into a hug. Is it over? She asked. I think so. Maybe. Marco called 3 days later. I heard what happened, with Valentina, at the waterfront. How did you? I always have people watching you, Emma, for your protection. When they told me she'd approached you, I nearly left the meeting and flew back immediately. But then they said she walked away, that she threw away her gun. His voice was rough with emotion. What did you say to her? The truth, that she'd driven you away by being cruel instead of vulnerable, that killing me wouldn't bring you back. He was quiet for so long I thought the connection had dropped. Then, when I get back, we need to talk, really talk, about what this is between us, about what it could be. You're still married, Marco, not for long. I filed for divorce this morning. Valentina and I, we both knew it was over. We've known for a while. This just forced us to finally admit it. He paused. I'm not asking you to wait for me, Emma. I'm not asking you for anything. But I need you to know that you changed something in me. Made me remember what it felt like to want something beyond power and control. And regardless of what happens between us, I'll always be grateful for that. Tears streamed down my face. When will you be back? 2 weeks. Maybe less if I can manage it. Will you still be here? Yes. I'll be here. Good. Because I have so much to tell you. About my past, about my business, about what my life will look like as I try to go legitimate. It won't be easy, and I'll have enemies. But if you're willing to take that risk... I am, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm tired of playing it safe, Marco. I'm tired of being invisible. Whatever comes next, I want to face it. With you. His laugh was warm, genuine. My brave Emma, I'll see you soon. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, suspended state. I worked at the gallery, which felt different now. Lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. Diana noticed the change and smiled but didn't ask questions. Valentina filed for divorce 3 days after Marco. The news spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire. The Russos were splitting, and everyone was scrambling to figure out what it meant for their own positions. But the divorce was civil, almost friendly. Valentina kept her own businesses and connections, and Marco kept his. They divided their empire with the cold efficiency of business partners, not scorned lovers. She came to the gallery once more, a week before Marco was due to return. She looked different, softer somehow, her sharp edges just slightly dulled. I'm moving to Naples, she told me. Going back to where I started, but this time with money and power. Maybe I'll finally figure out who I am without Marco to define me. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, and meant it. You too, Emma. You too. She paused at the door. One piece of advice, though. Don't let him consume you. Don't make yourself small to fit into his world. He fell for you because you're different from all of us. Don't lose that trying to become what you think he needs. I won't. Good. She smiled. A real smile, not the sharp, predatory one I was used to. Goodbye, Emma Chen. I don't think we'll meet again. Goodbye, Valentina. And then she was gone, walking out of my life as dramatically as she'd entered it. Marco returned on a cold November evening. I was closing up the gallery when I heard the door open, and there he was, looking exhausted but lighter somehow, like he'd set down a burden he'd been carrying for years. Hi, he said simply. Hi. We stared at each other across the gallery, all the art and beauty around us fading into background noise. Then he crossed the space between us in 3 long strides and pulled me into his arms. The kiss was everything I'd imagined, and nothing like I'd expected. Gentle but desperate, tender but consuming. His hands cupped my face like I was something precious, and I felt tears streaming down my cheeks, mixing with the kiss. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I'm a mess, Emma, he said, his forehead pressed against mine. I have enemies, dangerous business to untangle, a past that will always haunt me. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. I don't want normal, I whispered. I want real. I want to matter. I want to feel alive instead of just surviving. And when I'm with you, I feel all of that. Then let's be a mess together. He kissed me again, softer this time. Let's figure out what comes next, one day at a time. One day at a time, I agreed. That night, Marco told me everything. About his childhood in Sicily, watching his father build an empire on blood and fear. About inheriting that empire at 25 when his father was murdered. About trying to balance legitimate businesses with the criminal enterprises he couldn't fully escape. About the men he'd killed, the deals he'd made, the compromises that had slowly eroded his soul. And I told him my story too. About my father leaving, my mother's illness, the baby I'd lost and never let myself grieve. About feeling invisible for so long that I'd almost convinced myself I preferred it that way. We talked until sunrise, drinking coffee in the gallery surrounded by beautiful art, planning a future that seemed impossible but somehow, maybe, within reach. Marco began the long process of going legitimate, selling off the criminal enterprises, cutting ties with the families, investing in legal businesses. It wasn't easy. There were threats, attempts on his life, former allies who became enemies overnight. But he had good people around him, and slowly, painfully, he built something new. I stayed at the gallery, eventually becoming its director when Diana retired. I learned about art not as a job, but as a passion, discovering I had an eye for emerging talent. Marco and I bought a small apartment together. Nothing ostentatious, just a cozy space that was ours. My mother's condition stabilized with the better care I could now afford. She didn't always remember me, but on her good days I'd tell her about my life. Carefully edited, of course. About the man I loved, the work I was proud of, the life I'd built from the ashes of that terrified waitress at Sal's diner. Jessica remained my best friend. My anchor to the normal world when things got too intense. She married a fellow nurse and made me her maid of honor, and I cried through the entire ceremony thinking about how far we'd both come. And Valentina? I saw her name in the papers occasionally. Some business deal in Italy, a charity gala in Naples. She'd rebuilt herself far from Marco, far from the life that had nearly destroyed her. I hoped she'd found peace, maybe even happiness. As for Marco and me, we got married 2 years after his divorce was finalized, in a small ceremony at the gallery with just our closest friends. No mob bosses, no dangerous alliances, just 2 people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light together. It wasn't a fairy tale. We fought sometimes, about his past, about the dangers that still lingered, about the cost of the choices we'd made. But we also laughed, loved, and built a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely, perfectly real. Because in the end, that's what I'd been searching for all along. Not safety, Not wealth, not even love necessarily. Just the chance to matter, to be seen, to take up space in the world instead of trying to disappear into the background. And standing in Marco's arms, in the gallery we'd built together, surrounded by art that captured both beauty and pain, I finally felt like I'd found it. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was alive.